Confidence. It's a big word, isn't it? It is so highly valued and seems to be such an important asset to have. Think about yourself for a moment. Are you a confident person? Do you believe in yourself and your ability to tackle any challenge that is thrown your way? Or do you doubt yourself, question whether you can master a new task, or have the courage to introduce yourself to the stranger next to you? In the last few years, I have noticed that I am lacking confidence. I would not be the first one to put my hand up in class, or I would do anything to avoid being taken onto the dance floor at an event. So, I took it upon myself to use this research project as an opportunity to explore my personal confidence. I wanted to find out whether a personal challenge could improve my own confidence and that of others, and I chose to use mosaicing as my challenge. I began with the hope to come out of my shell in a certain area of my skill set, which I was really lacking confidence in, and that was art. It is not a secret that my art skills aren't the greatest, and most of the time I love to just have fun and make others laugh when showing them my interesting artistic creations in art class. At the same time, I was wondering whether I could actually use art to increase my personal confidence in other areas of my life. I decided to do this using a unique form of art, being mosaics. The first time I tried mosaicing was in Year 7, when I created a small mosaic for a main lesson project. I had the help of my mum, as well as a family friend, Alison, and Alison has actually been my mentor for my project. I have to say, I could not remember any skills that I may have learnt then, so really starting from scratch for this project. At the beginning of the year, it felt as though I was jumping into the deep end with minimal knowledge of mosaicing. The thought of exploring mosaicing made me feel excited, but at the same time was nerve-wracking. I knew that I needed to acquire a range of skills and techniques in order to complete an artifact that I would be proud of and which would show my growth and confidence. I also wanted this challenge to be one that would be worthy of a whole year of my time. I started my mosaicing journey by signing up to an online website that provides many courses on different subjects, and I purchased an Introduction to Mosaics. This course helped me to understand the basics of mosaicing, including different techniques to create different types of mosaics and what supplies I needed. Bunnings was great for the tools that I needed and materials such as glues, grouts and sealants. I needed a large amount of tiles with lots of different colours and shades. I wanted to be as sustainable as possible by collecting these tiles, so I reached out to local Facebook community groups, parents and teachers and friends, and to my luck, many people responded enthusiastically. I also resorted to buy more tiles to obtain some additional colours that I needed. The sourcing of the tiles was an ongoing process. It took a lot of time as I needed to have a much larger amount of tiles available than I actually needed for the project, just so that I had a wide variety of options. To gain experience and practice the techniques to improve my skills, I created a small series of fruit mosaics during semester 1. These were grapes, an orange, a pear, and cherries. In each mosaic, I focused on different techniques. For example, the grapes revolved around practicing cutting round shapes and for them to fit together in the end. Cutting tiles in the direction that you want to cut is extremely difficult. The slightest change in angle of the cutting tool may result in a break going in a completely wrong direction. So, I had to practice a lot to get a good feel for the tools, and it eventually became second nature. To illustrate my learning a bit more, I would like to show you 2 more examples. The red flower on the left was the very first flower that I mosaiced, which would eventually be part of my main artifact. It looks pretty rough, and it took me a good 2 hours to cut the tiles, to lay them out, and to glue them. I have to say, this was pretty depressing. If this flower took so long, I couldn't even imagine how long my project would take. I started to feel overwhelmed with the task, and I needed to dig deep and commit more time into the mosaic to stay on top of the project. Anyway, I was much happier with my second flower, which looked much neater and took less time, proving to myself that my experience was already showing. And here is an example of how I applied the skills learnt from my great mosaic in my final artifact, creating a little green worm. As I mentioned before, I created the great mosaic with the aim to perfect my skills in cutting small circular shapes to form grapes. Practicing this was so important, so that I was then able to cut these small worm segments and place them into the sunflower, which you can see here. There were certainly ups and downs during each mosaic session, but examples like these helped me to persist with my project and grow my confidence in my mosaicing. In order to measure whether my confidence actually changed as I developed my mosaicing skills and knowledge, which was a major aim of my project, I needed a tool to quantify this. While talking with my mum, she suggested that I could use visual analog scales, which she uses as a part of her research. These scales are often used to measure changes in subjective feelings, and so I created a questionnaire that would help to address my research question. These were: how motivated am I feeling at the moment for the task? How confident am I feeling about achieving today's task? How positive am I feeling at the moment? How much am I looking forward to / have enjoyed the task? I was also interested in how confident I was feeling at that moment in general. I answered each question before I started the mosaicing task, and again after I finished the task. I was hoping that I would see a change in confidence at the end of the task, and even more importantly, an increase in my confidence over time. An important experience that in hindsight really helped to build my self-confidence was the community aspect. I chose to work with Logan Long's Class 7 to 9 Community Art elective over the course of terms 2 and 3. This gave me the opportunity to work with the students, and we decided to create a mosaic for the community. I enjoyed every part of this experience. It was so much fun, and being able to connect with students from the lower classes was a rewarding experience. From brainstorming ideas as to what themes we wanted to include in the mosaic, to getting to the exciting part of receiving the materials and starting to smash the tiles, which of course the boys loved the most, before working our way to completing the puzzle of the mosaic. Every step of the process was so satisfying. Other students from outside the group joined in on the fun at times to help out, which sparked interest in even more students to come and see the progress we were making. I really enjoyed this experience, and it further built my confidence because I realised that I was able to share my mosaicing skills that I was developing with the students and could inspire them to be creative during this process. The students agreed on 2 themes for the mosaic, which are reconciliation and wildlife, embracing one of the most important school values into the community aspect, being reconciliation, and combining it with the natural love that the students have for native wildlife. A design was drawn up by the students and included an emu and a kangaroo with the Aboriginal flag in the background. The mosaic we created is this one here. It is designed to become a Stobie Pub mosaic at the school entrance on Sims Road, so you all, along with the wider community, will be able to see it when you drive to and from school. We completed the mosaic at the end of term 3. However, there are a few roadblocks that I encountered along the way, which were frustrating and made me doubt the completion of this project. I went through the long process of communicating with SA Power networks and putting in repeated applications to use certain Stobie poles along Sims Road to display the mosaic, only for these to be denied. Finally, SA Power networks accepted our application, however, then requested that I also obtain council permission. This took even more time, but with the help of Logan, we were able to overcome these issues and continue on to complete the mosaic. And now, we are nearly ready to hang up the mosaic on the Stoby pole, which is very exciting. Having had the opportunity to create an art piece with others for the wider community is very special to me, and I'm proud of the outcome. I was also interested in assessing whether mosaicing would increase the confidence of the students in this project. And so, I used my visual analog scale questionnaires with them. This slide shows 2 examples of students rating their motivation and confidence before and after specific tasks. Before each session, their motivation and confidence levels were on the lower side of the scales and were much higher at the end of the session. This was probably because I was teaching them a new skill, so they were hesitant initially, but towards the end of the sessions, the students were enjoying themselves and confidently mosaicing without any help. This was my objective and hope for the students to gain from this project. In addition to working with the students, I also attended a few gatherings of a local community group called the Smashing Ladies, shown in this picture. This is a crazy group of ladies who love to mosaic while having a chat and a laugh. The group is located close to my home in Basket Range, and Alison, who is on the right-hand side of the photo, has been my mentor and is a vital part of that group. These ladies welcomed me with open arms, and I loved sharing my progress with them. They gave me lots of support and positive feedback, which certainly helped to boost belief in myself and my mosaicing skills. Being part of this group has also shown me how much fun mosaic can be. Being a part of this group has also shown me how mosaic. While I was working on all of these tasks, I was, of course, also spending a lot of time developing and creating my artefact. I started at the beginning of term 2, when I began brainstorming lots of ideas. I went from a huge wall mosaic to a series of plant pot mosaics to a mosaic table before finally settling on creating a mosaic within a bird bath. Once I had decided, I quickly found a bird bath which, in hindsight, had the ideal shape, and then got straight to planning the project. I knew that I wanted the bird bath to include vibrant colours, flowers, wildlife, elements of water and sky and grass, while also incorporating contrast and patterns. In April, I was ready to start my bird bath and decided to begin with a small flower. I thought that achieving that first would give me a sense of accomplishment. But as soon as I had cut that small flower, I realised just how big of a project I had laid out for myself. As I explained before, that red flower took at least 2 hours to do. And when I tell you I'd lost all confidence in that moment, I really mean it. I could literally not see how I could possibly finish this project in time. In addition to this red flower, which looked so small in this big bird bath, I had to make so many more flowers, which were mostly much bigger as well. Anyway, there was no turning back, and so I had to come up with strategies that allowed me to create these flowers more efficiently. So, I decided to include a number of larger and bolder flowers, and some with simpler forms, making mainly daisies and sunflowers. For the larger flowers, I used larger tile pieces that took less time to cut. Along with this, I realised that I needed to manage my time very carefully. It turns out that first flower was the first 2 hours of at least 160 hours in total that I worked on the mosaic. As time went on and I persisted, I became a lot more productive and could gradually see the mosaic taking shape. In addition to being able to visualise the finished mosaic, I could see my confidence increasing faster and faster whenever I went out into the workshop to mosaic. I felt more confident and started mosaicing out of pure enjoyment rather than for a school project. This feeling was very satisfying because that is what I had set out from the beginning of the year to feel. And what is really interesting is the fact that the visual analog scale data that I collected completely reflect this. Here, you can see the data representing changes in motivation as well as my confidence for the task. The x-axis represents the timeline of my mosaicing, and the y-axis, the visual analog scales from 0 to 10. The blue dots represent my entries before a given task, and the red dots my entries after the task. I recorded scores throughout the project, in total from 24 tasks, so not every single task. You can see that when I started the project in April, my scores for both were very low, but they increased throughout the project. Importantly, the scores after the tasks were much higher than the scores before each task. That was very exciting to see because it shows that simply doing the task improved my motivation and confidence. What was also interesting and very special to me was that for confidence, the scores reached a plateau. This occurred around August and coincided with me being able to visualise the finished bird bath. And there is more. I've also got evidence that my general confidence also increased during this process. As I mentioned before, my visual analog scale questionnaire also assessed my general sense of confidence on a given day, and as this graph shows, that also increased continuously throughout my project. At the start of making the bird bath mosaic, I had no belief that I could achieve the project that I had chosen. I found it challenging to push myself to keep working, but knew that I had to continue. So I broke up the big task into smaller steps. As the graph showed, my visual analog scale entries began to slowly increase during the process. I realised that I did have the ability to finish the mosaic. Knowing that I have actually achieved this and my confidence growth is literally symbolised by my artwork is something I hope will stay with me and will help me with future challenges. In my speech, I refer to a few key terms that I believe embody critical mindsets that I have learnt to apply while wrestling with this challenge that was my project. I strongly believe that these were central to completing my project. They are confidence, persistence, motivation, and enjoyment. These characteristics and skills are not independent of each other. There are many interdependencies between them. For example, to develop my confidence, I needed to be persistent and not give up when there were challenges or when I lacked motivation. When I pushed through a frustrating task, such as cutting a difficult shape from an old tile, only for it to split in the wrong way, but then worked out a technique to do it, I felt a renewed sense of achievement. Realising that I was able to do it filled me with motivation to move forward to the next task. As I accomplished these challenges more and more often, I began to notice that I actually enjoyed the process and the fact that I was feeling a lot more confident. The final turning point was when I had progressed sufficiently and I could visualise the finished bird bath. I saw a bird bath full of vibrant colours expressing the beauty of nature. I could never have imagined at the beginning of the year to be able to create a mosaic like my bird bath. I've learnt so many skills, but most importantly, I've learnt that I can grow my self-confidence by facing a challenge and working through it one step at a time. Knowing this will no doubt help me in many other areas throughout my life. Thank you.